Your mind's looking for things to worry about.
Emma and Caitlin, congratulations on the win. Oh my God, I watched this movie last night and I had to sleep with the lights on. It was just, it was that scary. So, my question for Emma, what is it about Teresa's script that made you say, hey, I want to direct this one? Because Westerns are few and far between these days. Western horror is even more kind of rare these days. So what is it about like, oh, I gotta do this one as my directing feature? And for Caitlin, you've done Smiley, Insidious Lasky. What is it that brings you back to the horror genre again?
I think as a first time feature or narrative feature filmmaker, the idea of getting to do a Western was like being a kid in a candy shop. There's so many amazing classic references to draw upon, and then to be able to find new ways to reinvent that and see it fresh felt like such a cool challenge. So that component of the script, I was like already hooked before I started reading it. But then when I read it, I was actually most drawn to the drama in the script. I felt like the characters were so well written and so fully dimensional, especially the character of Lizzie that Caitlin plays. And I thought that their arcs and specifically her own, emotional trajectory throughout the whole film was so rooted in great drama and great characters. And I think the best horror films and Westerns are rooted in that. And so for me, it was actually Teresa Sutherland's script, I thought just nailed like the drama of these people so well.
I have to say that I really generally enjoy sort of the underbelly of the human psyche. So dark characters tend to excite me in general. So that's probably why I gravitate towards horror or horror gravitates towards me. Either or, probably both. But this one specifically felt so authentic and refreshing from anything I had read. And when I got it, I just remember having the feeling of like, oh God, how cool would that be? To have the opportunity to delve into this mental state and really explore these notions of sort of fear and doubt and loneliness, and having to do it in this completely isolated space was so thrilling, and also at the same time a bit scary. And I think when something scares you, it's a good thing, literally and emotion, not literally.
Non-linear filming of this, the nature of this film. I want to ask, did you guys shoot it linearly or non-linearly too? And also, other filmmakers with their films, sometimes when they do this method, they'd have different color palettes, but you seem to keep the same tone for flashbacks or the present day. Can you talk about that? And also for Caitlin, the nonlinear aspect of it, does that provide challenges for you as an actress? I mean, how do you get into that headspace for that certain scene?
The nonlinear structure of the film was I thought one of the things that really gave the film so much energy, because we're really inside Lizzie's POV as she's jumping back and forth through present day and her memories. So in terms of how we shot it, we did shoot it out of order, and that was really just out of necessity for the production schedule, and a super challenge, and one that Caitlin did masterfully, like of keeping the emotional arcs of each timeline really clear, and jumping around as we were shooting, I think was no easy task. And in terms of the color, we talked about it a bunch because this one is really challenging because we're in the same locations. The characters haven't really aged that much. There's not so much to tip its hat at the fact that we've gone backwards or forwards in time. So in terms of the color grade, we were like talking about whether or not we wanted to affect the timelines differently to help be a guide. And I think ultimately we decided to do do very subtle differences. The earlier timelines are slightly warmer, and we were doing that with the color palette on set as well in terms of the costume and some of the set deck. But we absolutely wanted the audience to feel challenged with this one and not handheld. And at the same time, you don't want to confuse your audience to the extent that you lose them. So, I think as Lizzie is questioning things in her own mind, we're also questioning at times where we are and feeling a little bit of disorientation. But I think we ultimately felt like if our character's emotional arc is tracking strongly enough, then we thought people would be on the journey, and that we didn't need to do drastic color differences in order to say, well, we've jumped back into time.
There was a script available that I believe it was Teresa who did it, where she wrote it nonlinear. So there was never, in her mind, it unfolded in this nonlinear fashion, which I thought was so fascinating. But that was really hard for me. So she deconstructed the script and gave me a linear format. So I had the 3 timelines broken up for me so that I could create an arc that I could follow. And having that, because you're always going to shoot a movie out of order. So this was nonlinear, shot out of order. So there usually is, but usually you have some linear structure to follow at the base. And so having that as my foundation allowed me to see the beginning and the end. And that helped greatly. And then having an incredible team and having us all be on the same page of knowing exactly which time we were in, whether it was the costume or even the hair. These are details that no one's going to notice, but the JQ, our art department, she had this book of eras of hairdos of the time. And so each era had a different hairdo. And so for me, it was just like knowing which do I was in helped me physically, just whenever I saw my reflection or as it was getting done, allowed me to sort of tap in and sink into this is the time I'm in. You know what I mean? And but yeah, I mean, it was incredibly disorienting. And I think that also really helped the character in her disorientation to, yes, I very much took advantage of that.
New Mexico, the filming location, correct? How hard was it? How challenging logistically? And did you only use one goat, or there were multiple goats during production?
We shot the film in New Mexico, and when we first got out there, it was early October, I think, or we actually got out there at the end of September for pre-pro, and we started shooting in October. And the days were really hot when we first got out there, and then the nights got cold. As soon as the sun sets, you're in the middle of the desert, and the wind blows in, and all the other stuff. But then towards the end, we were really pushing the beginning of winter, and it was freezing, and we were doing night shoots and in uninsulated cabins, and our whole cast and crew are really brave for having gotten through that, because it was tough, but specifically our cast, because they were at times wearing clothes that were so much less than what the crew behind them was wearing, so including myself. So they were really the stars of that. The goat. There was only one live goat. There was one prop goat that was also like a prosthetic hybrid that we then enhanced with VFX. But spoiler alert, the goat kicks it, or does he? But Dolly, our goat, it actually wasn't a he at all. It was a woman, and or it was a female goat. So our goat, the woman, was a female goat, and not only was she female, she was pregnant
And a diva.
So she wanted to lay down the whole time because she was pregnant, which we found out midway through shooting.
Yeah, we didn't know this.
And she was great, but it was like it was a total trip working with animals is just so unwieldy.
Yeah, working with animals keeps it very fresh. I mean, we even had the wolves, and and one of them was 100% wolf, and one of them was like 90% wolf. So, and the difference between the two natures of them was really wild because the wild wolf was very unwieldy, and then the wolf that had a little bit of dog in him was he had that, like, his tail would wag when you would look at him. And so it was that funny thing though where it was like trying to make him be fierce. Like, they didn't want to chase after me, they just wanted to play.
They were licking Caitlin's face
Yeah,
by the end.
yeah, yeah. They were, there. I have a few photos of myself and these wolves, and they look ferocious. And they did a great job acting because they were definitely the sweetest animals. But yeah, in general, I mean, working with Dolly was exceptional. She needed a few more takes than I did, just saying.
I will say that's one thing I think to the actors' credits, you know, when all of a sudden you have a diva on set and it's a goat, not delivering, and you are delivering take after take after take. You know, the patience is tested. But,
it was really funny though. It was good. It was great. It kept us on our feet, and we will never forget Dolly.
All right, I think my time is running out. Just one last thought, if you don't mind. Talk a bit about the feminine, I guess, themes, underlying themes in this film. Because back then, in the Western era, of course, women are like maybe treated like second-class citizens. I can notice it in the film. Or am I reading too much into that?
No, I think the feminist undertones of it are there. I think that you know, what I was really drawn to about this script is it felt like it was the American West is such a complicated place, and it's a complicated thing that still, you know, I think really is something we're still grappling with right now. And it's an origin story, and it's also covering up another origin story. And I felt like this script, it's very fabric, built so many of those things, I think, in a nuanced way into the story without it being messagey. So I think just by the fact that we were turning the story on the women who stayed behind in the cabins and didn't go off to town and didn't go off on the quote unquote adventures, it already had, like, you know, a feminist lens on it without it being, you know, without it hitting the nail on the head in a way that might be off-putting and might not be germane to the story. It just was the story, if that makes any sense. And I felt like it did that with a number of other issues too. And I loved that element of it.
The Win is out next week, April 5th, in select theaters, New York, Los Angeles, and VOD. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for talking to me. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Your mind's looking for things to worry about.